Welcome back to our second week of art. What do you say we start off today's art lesson with an easy warm-up exercise? So go ahead, get your pencil ready, your eraser, and your paper, and let's warm up with a real nice drawing that I think you're going to like. Alright, so for today's warm-up exercise, we're going to use a very easy drawing. It's a street lamp. It's a drawing that we can make that's very symmetrical. In other words, if we were to draw a line down the middle of this image, it would be identical on both sides, right? You can just draw the left side and then copy the right side like you did the left side. So let's get started. Paper layout is important. If I were to draw like this, the lamps would be tiny. So what I want to do is I want to turn my paper to the vertical position, and then I'm going to separate it into halves, right? Two sides, left and right, and now we've got 4 boxes. And I'm going to draw the lamp on all 4. Let's start in the way that we read, right? Which was top left. And I'm going to do the first shape that I see, which is the top middle one. And then on the sides I see 2 triangle type shapes, and in the middle at the top, a circle. Now the ones at the bottom part of the lamp are a little longer, right? You notice that? They're longer. Now I can tell already that my lamp is going to have to go down below this line, but that's okay. I can just change it around, and I can make it shorter. Making it shorter is no big deal. Now my first lamp is coming out a little funny. It's coming out a little bit different than what's in the picture. But that's okay, right? Because this is, like we always say, this is a warm-up. This doesn't have to be perfect. This just has to kind of look like what's in the picture. Alright, so there's kind of an oval shape here in the middle. And then it's got, let me see, a section here. Then it has a little thing like that. And then it has another one, and I'm running out of space. That's okay. I completely ran out of space. No big deal, that's my first one, right? Okay, so on my second one, I should do a little better. I'm gonna start off with the circle. This time I'm gonna learn from this example. I'm gonna start up a little higher, right? Start up a little higher. Wondering if you guys can see that. Let me bring it down here so you can see it more towards the middle. And then I'm gonna make my shapes a little bit smaller, so that they can fit, okay? And then I'm gonna do this part right here, the center, and then the side. Okay. That's the base. And now I'm gonna go to this part right here, these 2 little half circles. And then I'm gonna do a little piece right here. And then the 2, I don't know what those are, but I think I've seen in public places, the cities will hang flowers from there. Okay, now if I go all the way down, I'm gonna run into trouble, right? So I'm gonna stop around here. Make my oval. And I'm gonna come down. My first break. Make this one super short. Okay, this one came out a little better, right? A little closer to what it should be. And then 1 circle, line here, another circle, line there. Okay, this one's a little better than this one. I mean, I don't dislike this one. It's just that this one I think is better. All right, now I'm gonna move it up. I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna try to do it even a little smaller, so that I can get as close to what I'm seeing, as close as possible. Now this third one I've already practiced, right? So since I've done it twice already, I'm going a little slower, and I think I'm getting a little better. What do you guys think? You think it's getting a little better, or is it just as bad as the first 2? It doesn't matter, right? Because this is warm-up. Warm-up exercise. Practicing our hand-eye coordination. Hand-eye coordination is very important in art. We don't want our hands doing whatever they want. We want our hands to listen to our eyes, right? It's what our eyes see that we want our hands to listen to. There's our oval. Let's go down a little more. There's our first one, our second ring, and then we'll go with the base. Even if I'm running out of space, I still include my base. Okay. And let's go for the last one. The last one, I'm just gonna go crazy. I'm gonna do just a weird lamp. I'm gonna use the same one that I'm using, that we're looking at, but I'm gonna go funky on it. Oh yeah, I'm gonna change it up. I'm gonna have a little bit of fun with it, making it a little bit different, right? Is that okay to do? Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm still using the same lamp, but I'm adding to it. I'm changing it. I'm making it a little funnier. And then I'm going to come here, and instead of making an oval, I'm going to make a heart shape. Like if the lamp was a person, right? It has a heart. This part here, this part, and then I'm going to finish with my base. How's that? So you can play around with it. I mean, try to do at least 3 that kind of look like the lamp, and let's color one, right? Because we always like to color one. I'm going to color this one. I think this is my favorite. Even though this one's funny, I want to color this one. And before I color it, I'm going to draw something on it. I'm going to draw the sidewalk. I want it to look like it's on the sidewalk. And I'm going to draw the street part. Since our project these 2 weeks has been the street, the view of our front door from the street, I'm going to put maybe a door back here to make it look like there's something going on across the street. Maybe some apartments, right? Just a light drawing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Maybe a window here, part of a window. Okay, great. We can do the street to make it look like there's a lane that divides the street in 2. And I'm going to color this one. Now, last week I used color pencils, remember? But this week I'm going to use crayons. I've got a box of crayons, and I'm going to use some crayons. Now, are we going to make this a night scene or a day scene? You know, we could make it a day scene, but then what happens? The light would not be on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a night scene. So that means I'm going to use a lot of dark colors. So I'm going to take out this, I like this green, this blue-green. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. That's a blue-green. And I'm going to use blue-green for my lamp. That's going to be the base color of the lamp. So I'm just going to put a little blue-green here, just to give it the first color that it needs. All right, I'm going to use this as the top of the lamp. That part's not going to have light. It's going to be like the little roof of the lamp. And I'm going to use the same blue-green on the street a little bit. I'm just putting down light amounts of it, right? You don't see me coloring this too dark yet, not yet. Now we know that the sidewalk is gray colored, right? But if you look outside, there's other colors in the sidewalk. And for this sidewalk, I'm going to put a little bit of brown on this side. And let's see, maybe a little bit of orange on this sidewalk. I can still add a little bit of brown to it too. Just mix it in there gently, gently, not too hard. Okay. Now the apartments or the buildings in the back, I'm gonna imagine that they are maybe somewhere in New York or somewhere up north, and or maybe even in London, right? And they're gonna be made out of bricks. I'm thinking of bricks here. So I'm gonna start with brown. I'm gonna start with a little bit of brown. And then I'm gonna I wanna use red for the brick, but because it's gonna be nighttime, I'm going to use a darker version of red, which is this red violet. Yeah. So So here I go, I'm mixing my colors in there. I don't mind that one color gets on top of the other. That's exactly what I want to do. I want to mix my colors up. And if a little bit of that goes onto the lamp, it's okay. All right, now the street. We said that the street, I'm gonna put a little bit of this violet purple on the street, just to add some variety. And it is nighttime. This is gonna get a lot darker, but I like to have some colors down. Oh, and those doors. What can we do for those doors? Okay, so let's imagine that those doors are white, right? And so we're gonna add a little bit of this orange. Orange? Wow, Mr. G, you just said white. Yeah, but I'm gonna show you why in a bit. Just gonna throw some orange on there. I'm gonna throw some orange on this one. Now you don't have to do this. You don't have to do a street scene. You can follow along if you like. If you think this is fun and interesting, you can follow along with my coloring. But you can make your own. You can make your street lamp in the jungle. You can put a street lamp on the beach, anywhere you want. Okay, I'm also going to put a little bit of blue on this sidewalk. And on that sidewalk, a little bit of blue. See, what I'm doing is I'm creating layers of color, and I'm darkening them up. Because I want this to be a night scene, but I don't want it to have no color. Because even at night, right, even with a little bit of light, we can see some colors. Now I'm going to start on the lamp first. So I'm gonna think of the places where there would be shade or shadow from this light that's going to be shining. There's usually shadow on the bottom parts of things if the light's coming from the top, right? All right. Now I'm going to start with my black, because it is nighttime, right? It is nighttime. So this lamp is going to be nice and dark, except for some areas where the light is going to hit some things. Okay, so a little bit of shadow area around here. And the color of my lamp is going to be none other than yellow. I'm going to leave a little bit of white in the middle. And you know what? Since this is an old-timey lamp, let's put a little bit of orange in there to make it look like there's a little flame inside. All right, now I'm going to go back to my, remember this color? The blue-green? And I'm going to use this blue-green to finish off my lamp. And now I'm pressing a little harder, right? And I'm getting all those colors to blend. But as I get closer to the top of the lamp, I want to start adding some yellow, because some of that light from the lamp is going to start reflecting on the lamp itself. You see? So I'm going to leave some of that light, because in the real world, light reflects off of objects. And it's nice to include that in our drawing. You see our lamp there? Can you tell that it's on and that the lights are reflecting on certain parts by using just the yellow? Okay, now let's work on this sidewalk right here. Okay, I'm using this same green because I'm going to color it, but I want to put a little bit of yellow around the base, because see, this lamp is shining light on the floor. And now when I come with my black, I'm going to be very gentle with the black, because black, if you guys notice, is a very powerful color. It's very strong, and if I put a lot of black, it's just going to overpower everything. It's going to be too strong. But I want to put a little bit down because, again, it is nighttime. And then I'm going to come in with my brown, my sidewalk brown. and go over everything and bring back this yellow here. You see? Now, before I go on to this part right here, I just want to make sure I get some of these lines colored. Add a little bit more black in the area that's far away from the light. How's that looking? Okay, now let's do the street. Now the street, you know, we can do a lot of darkness on the street because the street, it is the street, right? And it's black. But sometimes the street reflects, right? Especially if it's a little wet. So let's put in some of that yellow from the lamp. I'm going to let some of that yellow go up onto these doors too, because that light is shining on everything. And let's start making that street darker. I'm going to go with my blue. Even get a little bit of that purple in there. And let's come in with the black. Now, I'm not afraid of the black here because, like we said, the street, it's already black, right? It's almost black. It's that pavement black. I'm being careful with my edges here because my paper wants to rip. And then you can go ahead and get a light color. I'm going to get, well, you know what? Let me just get the yellow. I'm going to use the yellow to blend a little bit. Here I'm pressing down a little harder. Right. Okay, now that last sidewalk back there. Let me get the lines, because then you know what? If I start coloring, I lose my lines, and then I forget where they were. I'm going to put in some dark brown because this sidewalk's far from the light, so it's not going to be as lit up as this one, so it's going to be a little darker. I'm going to put a little bit of gentle black in there. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow around here where it can be seen. And then I'm going to go ahead and let me see what's a good color for that. Okay, I'm going to go with a little bit of blue. Blue should darken it up. This is what I'm using is indigo. And I'm okay with this sidewalk back here being darker because it's further from the light. All right, you know what? I really like this indigo, so let's use it for the door frames. Oh, the doorknob. Almost forgot the doorknob. And I put a little bit more on these walls. We said that these walls were brick, right? Remember we said that? So what we can do is we can start getting some reds, making it look like there's bricks on the walls. Draw some separate bricks. Now some of you might be thinking, Mr. G, you didn't trace the lamp. Well, because the lamp is the most important thing, I'm going to leave it for the end. I'm going to trace that lamp all the way at the end of the drawing. It'll be the last thing I do. All right, let's bring in the black. Let's see what happens when we bring in the black. Let me put my black on the frame first. Okay, I'm just gently putting in the black. Gently. We said this was a window here, right? So we're going to leave it. We're going to leave that window clear. So so that we can make it look like somebody's living in there. Did you see how many colors I've put on top of the other? You know, I know that we're used to just drawing one color, coloring things one time with one color. The grass is green, oh, it's just one color, green. But if you're observing carefully, when you're making art, you don't want to just get stuck with one color. You want to put a lot of different colors on there. I want to put a little bit of yellow, like it's reflecting on these bricks a little bit. And it helps me blend the colors a little more. Alright, so we said the doors were going to be white, but before we get on the doors, let's finish up these door frames. I'm going to go with a little bit of brown. I'm going to brown them up a bit. And you know what? Let's put a little bit of brown on the door too. Don't worry, I'll get the white in there in a minute. But remember that they're far away, right? They're kind of far. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a little bit of black on those frames. They're supposed to be fuzzy because, again, like I said, they're far away. Alright, so I'll just put more yellow on these doors because they're doors that reflect the light. Okay, so here's a little bit of white. And I'm going to put a little bit of black. Not all over the door, just some parts of the door. Because this is a night scene. So we want it to be dark. We still want to see it, but we want it to be dark. And let's put a little bit of light in our window. We'll put a little bit of orange too. Somebody's in there reading. Okay, so there's our colored scene, and I said we were going to trace our main subject to make sure that it's visible so that everybody can know that this is what the artwork is about. The artwork is not about the doors, it's not about the street, it's about the street lamp that we have here. So once we trace it and it pops out, everybody can see that that's what the story's about, right? That street lamp, that's, even though it's nighttime, it's lighting up the street, helping people walk safely, right? I can keep working on this if I want to, but I'm gonna stop here so that you can do it. I'm gonna put the picture of the street lamp and you go ahead and you warm up. Now, if you want to color all of them, hey, that's perfectly okay. I'd love to see that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the image of the street lamp, of our warm-up line drawing. And then you go ahead and you pause the video. And when you finish, unpause the video, and we'll continue with today's lesson. All right? Go ahead and have some fun. So you should be done with your warm-up exercise. I hope you liked it. It was very easy, right? Remember that when you finish it, you can send me a picture of it. I would like to see what you got. Now, if you remember last week, we were introduced to a new artist. His name was Stephen Walker. Stephen Walker is a landscape painter, and he did beautiful work, right? He liked to go outside and paint the things around him. But I think that there were two very important lessons that he gave us. The first one was not to be afraid to make artwork. Fear is one of the biggest enemies of creative people. Sometimes we're afraid that we're going to make a mistake, and so we don't even bother to make some artwork. And that's not right. We should always be willing to make artwork. Another thing that fear can do to us is it makes us think that what we're doing at the moment is wrong. Oh, this is drawn wrong, or this is not right, and we throw it away. You know, we stop making art. That's another thing that artists struggle with. You know, the fear of having made a mistake and thinking that our artwork is not good enough, and then we stop making art. And that's not good. Remember, Stephen Walker said that if he was afraid, he'd never have an art show. He'd never work. And you have to work through the fear of mistakes. That was a very good lesson that we learned from Stephen. The second very important lesson was his use of light. How important it was for him to find the right light. Now, today I want to introduce you to a new artist. His name was Edward Hopper. Now, let's go see a video, a very brief video prepared by the Whitney Museum. The Whitney Museum is a very important museum in New York City. And Miss Tipton is going to talk to us about Edward Hopper and his paintings. Let's go take a look.
I'm Jennifer Tipton, a lighting designer for theater here in New York. And I think it was here at the Whitney that I first came to know the work of Edward Hopper and really fell in love with it, both as a lighting designer and just as a person. He uses light in an inexpressible way, in a way that makes you feel something that is very difficult to articulate. The name of this painting is New York Movie. One would think that the light from the screen would be the primary source, but it hardly seems to light the faces even. That light seems to come from this side and not be the same color as the light on the screen. Instead, Hopper directs us to the offstage scene, if you would, the usher waiting for patrons. The light is very cold on that side of the painting, even though there are red shades and red curtains. Quite a feeling of isolation. Conference at Night depicts a situation that's totally unrealistic. I mean, there seems to be no source of light in the room itself. The light comes entirely from the window. I can't figure out what that source could be that is so bright that it would light through two windows like that and not be the sun. It feels scary, very bleak, empty. Route 6 Eastham. It feels just like a nice landscape, but it's hard to figure out. Well, you see the angle of light that comes like that. All right, that lights the house. But it also lights and makes this shadow in the road. It's not the same sun at all. And therefore, it's very hard to tell time of day. Not only is it difficult to know the time of day, it's difficult to know the time of the year. My first impulse was to say summer. And yet this looks like spring in the light-colored green of the grass. This looks like fall with color, and it's hard whether this is the color of the sun or that the tree itself is changing color. It's very strange indeed.
So I hope you enjoyed Jennifer Tipton's comments on some of Edward Hopper's paintings. Did you notice how Hopper painted also the world around him? The houses, the landscape. He was interested in landscapes. He was interested in buildings and houses. And one time when he was asked about his artwork, he said, "All I want to do is paint sunlight on the side of a house. And that's what we see in a lot of his artwork. Now, when we look at Edward Hopper's art, what we're looking at is a moment in time. Like it's a moment frozen. It's a quiet, still space that he creates. Now, it's a moment that the artist wants us to think about. Now, Hopper's paintings, I don't know if you noticed, have some sort of mystery about them. There's just this little bit of drama. And he does this intentionally. He does this on purpose. He uses one tool that artists use to create drama called contrast. What is contrast? Well, contrast is, in the case of Edward Hopper's artwork, the difference between light spaces, light parts of the painting, and dark parts of the painting. Let's take a look at an example of contrast. Okay. So, what you're looking at is an example of one of Edward Hopper's paintings. Edward Hopper painted this lighthouse. It's called Lighthouse Hill. He painted it in 1927. And what you're looking at is the original one on the left and the low contrast one on the right. When you look at the one on the left, you can see that the dark areas, the shadow areas, the areas where there's shade, it's very dark. It's almost black. But on the right, I've used the computer to remove the contrast. And you can see that the darks aren't very dark and the lights aren't very light. So when you want to include contrast, like in the example of Edward Hopper, your darks, your shades are very, very dark, and your lights are very, very bright. Like you can see on the left side of the lighthouse, it's very, very bright. And then on the right side where it's shadow, right, where the sun is not hitting it, it's very dark. Same thing with the house. Look at the left side of the house, the side that's facing the sun, very bright, and the side that's not facing the sun is very dark. You can also see that on the hill, right? The little different areas of the hill. There's some areas that are very bright and some areas that are very dark. That contrast creates the drama. Now, we're going to use contrast, just like Edward Hopper, in our front door view drawing that we did last week. Remember last week, we sat in front of our house, we drew what was outside, and now what we have is a drawing. Today we're going to color it and we're going to add contrast. How we're going to do it? Well, let's go visit my drawing and follow step by step on how I did it. Okay? Alright, so this is where you should be. This is the drawing that we made week 1. Of course, this is my drawing. Yours is different because everybody has a different door, a door view. What you're going to need is, you might need your pencil. I'm going to have it ready. And I'm going to use my sharpener to make sure it's nice and sharp. If you need an eraser, have an eraser ready. I'm going to use colored pencils for this. You can use crayons. I just prefer colored pencils. And if you remember what we've been learning about Edward Hopper, we were talking about contrast and the importance of dark areas and very bright areas. So the first thing I want to look at in my picture are the shadows. And some of the shadows that I notice that stand out in my picture are here in the entrances to this house. Now these aren't the windows to the house. These are the like these columns that cover the porch, and the door is in here. And you could see it, but I think by adding a little bit of dark there, a dark area, I can create the drama. I'm just adding some details that I'm noticing in now. And I'm going to start with shadows. The first shadows that I see, that I noticed, are here under the tree. So I'm going to create some really dark shadows. And I can use black, but don't use, when you're making shadows, it's best not to just use solid black. Although you can use a lot of it. I recommend that you put a little something into the black. So for example, this is the grass, right? So if I'm going to start off with some very dark shadows like black, I can start off making the black shadow that's on the grass. I can also do the shadow that's on the sidewalk. And then I'm going to add some dark green. I have some dark green and these color pencils. If you have any other green, that's fine, but the darkest green you can find. Now I'm not gonna add dark green here in this area, because that's actually the sidewalk. So I'm gonna go ahead and make these shadows really, really dark. Now after you add your green, if you want to go back and make the shadows even darker with a little more black, you can do that. Another color you could use is blue, or maybe even brown. If you remember the warm-up exercise, there's a lot of color mixing to make something more interesting. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do the green, because this is the grass, right? Green and the black. Now I notice also that there are some shadows right here where the sidewalk meets the grass. So I'm going to make that dark as well. Okay. So the first thing we're doing is we're looking at everything that could be a shadow and putting it in there. Now, the neighbor, and I didn't include it earlier. Let me see. The neighbor does have a sidewalk, if you're looking at the picture. And in his sidewalk, or her sidewalk, I don't know if it, well, they're both. There's a man and a woman living there. There are some plants. You can keep them simple. They don't have to be complicated. You can just do a couple of plant shapes. And under those plants, there's also some dark shadows. Can you see them in the picture? And if you look carefully at the area around here, it's also very dark. So I know that house has a peachy color, and there are some bushes there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring in some brown. I'm gonna use this area around the tree that's in front of my house. And I'm gonna make that area nice and dark. And I'm also gonna make this area dark. Because the house is peachy, I'm gonna make a dark brown shadow. So I'm just concentrating on the shadow areas, the dark contrasts. And now I'm going to go over with the black. Now this requires a lot of looking, right? Remember we talked about during the warm-up exercise the importance of looking. Using your eyes to see and to notice details. Being able to notice things is very important in life. Catching the details and including them. And art trains you for this. Now don't worry about this part right here. Later on we can go and redraw this, right? You can see that I can redraw it later. So if you go over something, don't forget we can trace. Now these areas of darkness are going to create that mystery, right? That drama when our artwork is finished. What's going on in that dark porch? Is there somebody looking? Obviously in my picture you can tell somebody looking, right? But in the artwork you can create mystery. Now you can use markers for this if you want. You can use color pencils. You can use crayons. If you have watercolor and you want to try it, no problem. I will accept the work. Now some of you might be thinking, Mr. G, I did this drawing and I colored it already. What do I do? Well, guess what? You're going to have to draw it again. Now, if you drew this and you were drawing it outside. Remember, you have to get mom's permission again to go outside and draw it again. Don't just recopy it from your paper. Don't do that. Make a fresh drawing. Also, if you are working from a photograph, maybe you were working from a picture, you can work from the picture again. You can use that same photograph that you took outside your front door, and you don't have to sit outside. But otherwise, you need to do it again. Because see, when you colored it, you weren't supposed to color it. You were supposed to wait. And I said that in the lesson, in the video. But it's okay. It's okay if you didn't do it. You can redraw. If you didn't wait, now's a good time. You can redraw it. Now the palm tree, if you look at the palm tree, it is very dark. And it's not 100% black. But because I'm doing a dramatic Edward Hopper type of work with high contrast, I'm going to make it as dark as I can. Bring it in here so you can see it a little better. And also, what else is dark? I think this post is very dark, right? You can put black first, or you could put the other color first. I'm putting a little bit of black first sometimes. Sometimes I put the brown. Okay, where else are there some? Oh, yes, the columns. The columns in the wall. They're pretty dark, right? I'm gonna make sure that I make them nice and dark. Okay, that's my tree there. All right. See, let's take a look. What else do we see that's dark? Maybe the road. Well, the road is very light colored, right? We're not gonna make it dark just because we want to make it dark, because we think that the road is black, right? It's not black at this time. It's a very light gray. It's almost a little bit of blue. Now, another place where I see contrast, let me sharpen up my black because it's losing its point, is on the roof. Do you see the roof? These tiles have a lot of contrast. So go ahead, and if you've got tiles, look for those high contrast areas. Maybe there's a nice dark shadow under a car in front of your house. Go ahead and do that. Look for areas where there's a shadow and make it darker than it really is. Because what we're creating is that mystery, that drama. All right, now I think I've got as much shadow for now. Oh, wait. You know what's also very dark? The trunk of this tree. Right? You guys see that? It looks pretty dark. It's not 100% super dark. So I'm going to use a little bit of a brown that I have here. Let me see, a lighter brown. This one. Oh no, actually this is a darker brown. I'm going to use that darker brown. I'm going to mix that in there. And then I'm going to put a little bit of green because I know that has green. I can kind of tell that it's greenish. Alright, now this is going to take me about an hour or two to finish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an area. I'm going to color an area so you can see how to do some grass, how we can do these leaves, and maybe a little bit of the wall over here, and maybe a little bit of the street. So you can see how it's done. And then you can go on your work, right? Because I know you're eager to start coloring yours and drawing it if you haven't finished drawing it. But let me give you some tips. So I'm looking at my tree right here, and I'm seeing 3 colors I can use for these leaves, right? So you can start from light to dark or dark to light, however you prefer. I'm gonna go from light to dark. So as a matter of fact, I'm just gonna get all my leaves. I'm gonna pretend that they're all yellow first. Okay, here they go, they're all yellow. You see that? And I'm also going to do that on the grass. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow on all of my grass. I'm not going to do all the grass, just a little bit of it. And if you look at the grass that's growing at the bottom, below the sidewalk, I'm going to start with yellow there too. And I'm going to show you a little trick here to make this look realistic. Alright, now let's go with the medium yellow, right? As a matter of fact, I've got a little bit of orange, and I'm seeing just a little bit. This is called, what is this called? Oh, it's kind of like a light orange. I'm going to throw a little bit of light orange in there. I'm going to kind of zigzag it to make it look like they're leaves, a lot of leaves. Create the illusion, right? And I'm going to put some here too. Now the zigzags on the grass, I'm going to kind of make them like up and down. So they kind of look like grass already. I don't have to struggle too much later. It's already giving me the thought, you know, when you look at it real quick, that's got a texture that's like reeds of grass, right, that are coming up off the ground. Now the closer I get to here, to the bottom of the page, the bigger they're going to be, right? Because I'm close to them, so they look big. And when I move further away, my zigzags or my grass is going to look smaller, right? So I'll make smaller ones there. All right, now let's go on with our light green. Now with light green, I'm actually going to start creating little leaves, right? Little leaves, tiny little leaves. Making it look like there's little leaves growing on my tree. Now this is also not just an exercise in looking, it's also an exercise in being patient and doing something well, taking our time. Beautiful art takes time. I used to have a poster in the art room, some of you might remember, that said beautiful things take time. And it's talking about flowers. Flowers don't grow from one second to the next, right? They take a little time. Even good food, we've talked about fast food versus food that's cooked at home. Food that's cooked at home takes time to cook. It's not like McDonald's, right, where you just drive up and the food's ready. I mean, it's not bad food in the sense that it tastes okay, but nothing tastes as good as a meal that abuelita, or our mom has been cooking all day, and when you get home, oh my God, that tastes so good. The same thing with this. If you take your time, you do a good job, and you focus on drawing as many of the little leaves, or the little pieces of grass as possible, it's going to look good. If you just go wah, 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 and you color real fast, it's going to look like McDonald's. Fast art, fast food. Now, the area here is closer, right? So I'm taking a little more time to put in the detailed grass, right? It doesn't matter, they don't have to be perfect. Look at these squiggly ones right here. That's okay. What you want to make sure is that you get some individual feeling. So it looks like there's pieces of grass sticking up from the ground. If you have grass. Some of you might not even have grass in your drawing. If you don't have grass, because there's no grass in front of your house, just focus on the details of the things you do have. What kind of stroke with my color can I use to make it look like it's the real thing? Or at least to give the illusion, right? To help the imagination believe that what I'm looking at is a trash container or a car wheel or a door. All right, now we're going to go with the dark one. Now, I'm not going to put the dark one everywhere. I'm going to put the dark one towards the right because the light is coming from the left. So I'm going to use this dark color to simulate shadow and shade. This is my dark green. I'm using it in certain areas, not in all areas. Well, this is not really my darkest green. Did you know that this set of colored pencils has an even darker green? I might bring that one in later too. So this is, let's call this the medium dark green. I'm seeing that some of my branches might need a little bit of help with the green. Alright, so here are a couple of pieces of grass, but mainly I'm going to use the dark green around the shadows. Okay, and I'm going to bring this here too. Am I going to do it everywhere? No, I'm going to look at my grass. I'm looking at my grass and I'm noticing that the darker areas are not all over. Some parts are dark, some parts are not that dark. And that leaves some areas bright, right? Because, yeah, we're going to have some dark areas, but for there to be contrast, for there to be a difference, there has to be some light areas. Oh, there's a little piece of grass that sticks out here. So these are going to be taller here, right? Because they're going to look like they're closer. And you can put as much grass detail as you want. Okay, now I promised you I'd do a little bit of road. Let's do a little bit of road. In my picture, the road looks like I could use a little bit of light blue, maybe a little bit of white, and maybe a little bit of gray. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go all light blue. And you notice how I went over this plant? It doesn't matter, because later I'm going to go and color that plant nice and green. So it's okay. That blue is just going to help my plant. Right now it looks like there's a river in front of my house, right? It's kind of like a river. But don't worry. Now that we get this gray, and if you notice there's a line of gray. That's probably oil from the cars or the tires, right? So I'm going to put a little bit of gray. And then I'm going to get my white. You know what? I kind of see, call me crazy, I see a little bit of brown. Yeah, I see a little bit of brown on that road. So I'm just going to throw a little bit of brown in there. And now I'm going to get my white. And I'm going to, ooh, my white broke. Because you know why it broke? It broke because I was pressing down on it. Yeah, pressing down on it. So I pushed too hard. And I was pushing hard because I want this to blend. I want these colors to blend in. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of a hard push. Okay, so that's my road. That's my road. Now, if you want to go at any point and bring back some of the details in your trees or in your cars or in the fences, you go ahead and do that. Now, my sidewalk has different colors. Did you notice that? I noticed a little bit of peach here. Maybe this one has a little bit of peach. Maybe a little bit of gray. There's something under here. Oh yeah, it's like eraser stuff. Be careful when you have your erasers. The little pieces of eraser. Sometimes they get under your paper. Oh, and here there's some like stains on the sidewalk. It's a dirty sidewalk. Okay. Now, white. Throw some white in there. Sharpen it up again because I pressed it a lot. Now, I noticed that some of my contrast here is not that good, so I'm going to put in a little bit of dark gray. And I'm going to kind of darken these sidewalks a little bit. And there's a little bit of shadow here, right, from the little plant. So attention to detail, my friends. Attention to detail is going to go a long way in your artwork. And you are going to be able to add drama to your work. And one last thing I want to show you. But now this is about the sky. Okay, remember, we've talked about it a cajillion times, right? Clouds are white, sky is blue, right? Just trying to put a little bit of roof there. I'll come back for that roof. Oh man, it's hard for me not to come back to it right away. Clouds are white, sky is blue. But if you notice carefully in the picture, you'll notice that blue goes from light blue. The sky goes from a light blue. And let's leave a little bit of room here for a little bit of a cloud. You can just leave it nice and white. There's another little cloud there. As the sky goes up, it starts to get darker. Did you notice that? Take a picture, when you can, of the sky with your phone. And you will notice that the sky goes from light at the bottom, around here it's light. And then as it goes up, it starts to get darker. It's a crazy effect. But if you include it in your art's going to look much more real. It's going to go to the next level. Right? I mean, we're not talking about from light blue to dark purple. It's not that dark. Although sometimes maybe in the afternoon it might get that dark. But for now, just make sure you go from a medium blue, let's call that a medium blue, to a light blue. And that's about observation, right? Taking the time to observe nature, to observe what reality is, and then add a little bit. You know, artists always add a little bit of drama to things. You can do that, and we're doing that with contrast. I'm making sure my electrical cables are ready. So we want people to have electricity. And then I'm going to keep working on it. Right? I'm going to take my time. I'm going to think of the dark areas. I want to see dark areas in your work. I want to see areas that are nice and bright. Like here, you see how this is very bright and this is very dark? I want to see dark and light areas, okay? I don't want to see all just a medium color. And you can achieve that, right? By using your dark colors and leaving some areas nice and bright, just like Edward Hopper did. All right. Remember, if you already drew it and colored it, you got to start again. If you waited for this week's lesson, all you've got to do is you got to start coloring. If you are in a hurry, don't be in a hurry. Take your time. This is not due today. It's not due next week. Take your time. When it's ready, send it to me. If you're having trouble, check my email. I put it in the Teams page. That's where my email is. If you can't, send me a message and we'll figure something out. If you can't, show me the picture. But if you can really give it a shot and do your best, try to upload it to the Teams page, because that's the place where I can grade it and I can see it right away. And yes, everything is for a grade, so go ahead and make sure you've got it done. And I will see you in the Teams page for feedback, and then you'll see a new video next week. All right? Thank you for making art. Stay safe, and I hope to see you soon.